Hello friends, my name is Kishan. In this video tutorial we are going to discuss about the Spring Bean scopes. The core of Spring framework is its bean factory and mechanism to create and manage such beans inside a Spring container. The beans in the Spring container can be created in the 7 scopes. The following are the Spring Bean scopes. So first is the singleton, then prototype, request, session, application, global session and WebSocket. So if you are dealing with the core Spring container, then you will have a session like singleton or prototype. But if you are dealing with your web based application or J2E environment, then you may mention request as a request scope as a bean scope as a request session or applications. Now sixth is the global session. If you are dealing with the portlet environment, then of course you can specify bean scope as a global session. Seventh is the web socket. If you are dealing with the web application where you are writing the web socket programming, then your session may have a scope like WebSocket. So this is the discussion about the each scopes. Like singleton, so it returns a single bean instance per Spring IOC container. So this is very much similar to a singleton design pattern which happens to be in core Java. But in core Java, if you have a singleton design pattern, then you will have a single instance per JVM. But here you will have a single instance per Spring IOC container. This single instance is stored in a cache of such singleton beans, and all subsequent requests and references for that named bean return the cached object. So basically Spring creates an object and that put into the cache, and whenever client makes a call for this bean, then same object will get returned. If no bean scopes is specify in the bean configuration file, default is the singleton. If you configure your bean in your configuration file and if you do not specify any scope, then default scope is the singleton one. So let me show you. So this is the Spring project which we had created in a previous tutorial. So here when you define your bean, along with bean you have an attribute like a scope. So here you have opportunity to define your bean as a singleton or prototype if you are dealing with the core Spring container. If you do not specify any scope over here, then default scope would be singleton. Next scope is the prototype. It returns a new bean instance each time when requested. It has not stored any cache version like singleton. So if you specify a scope as a prototype, and when client makes call for this any bean which has defined as the prototype, then every time that will return Spring container will return you a brand new object. Next scope is the request. A scopes a single bean definition to the life cycle of the single HTTP request. That is, each and every HTTP request will have its own instance of the bean created off the back of a single bean definition, only valid in the context of the web aware Spring application context. So this is very much similar to when you create a project using traditional J2E fashion. Then you have a scope like request. In servlet you have a request, session and application. These are the scopes. So this is very much similar to the J2E scopes. So if you save any data in the request scope, then as long as request will process, that data would be stored. Once that request gets finished, then whatever data you stored in the request scope, that will be unavailable for you. Now session scopes a single bean definition to the life cycle of HTTP session, only valid in the context of a web aware Spring application context. So this is whenever you save any data in the session scope, then that will be valued for the or user session. Once session gets invalidated, then whatever data you store in this session, that will be unavailable for you. Application scopes a single bean definition to the life cycle of the servlet context, only valid in the context of web aware Spring application context. So this is very much similar to the J2E scope like application. So whenever you save any data in application scope, then that data would be available for the entire applications. Now next scope, we have a global session. It returns a single bean instance per global HTTP session. It is only valid in the context of a web aware Spring application context. So basically, if you design your web-based application, portlet web-based application, then you may have a scope like session, and this is very much similar to the scope which is in J2 environment like session scope. Finally, you have a WebSocket scope. Scopes a single bean definition to the life cycle of WebSocket, only valid in the context of the web aware Spring application context. So request session application, global session, and socket, WebSocket, these are scopes only valid in the web environment, and singleton and prototype is valid for the core container, Spring core container. So that's all I have in this video, guys. So next video tutorial we are going to cover singleton and prototype. We will create a demo project where we'll see what is the difference between singleton and prototype, and rest of the scopes we'll see in the when we'll study web-based applications. So that's all I have in this video. See you in next tutorial. Thank you, guys.